All right, I am live. I'm just waiting a little while longer for some more people to arrive so that I can teach about this NLP communication model. Yes, so this training or this short teaching that I'm offering today is on the NLP communication model. Hey, what's up? Hey, Mikey. All right, if you are here, please let me know. Just type a message in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And so today I'm going to teach you all about the NLP communication model. And this is from my training manual for my Genius Unlocked class where I'm learning about NLP and how to utilize NLP in coaching for healing and communication. So have you ever wondered why two people will have the exact same experience and have completely different responses to it? I do all the time. I'm like, did we just see the same thing? And the reason why people have such different experiences is in part due to this model that I'm about to teach you. All right, so let's get started. What is NLP? NLP stands for, well, actually first, if you know what NLP stands for, type it in the comments. And I'm going to wait a little while and see what's going on here. So if you know what NLP means or stands for, put it in the comments. And in the meantime, I'm going to introduce this here little diagram to you. I wish I could share my screen here. I don't really know exactly how to do that, but this is what we are going to study. All right, NLP, I'm going to tell you what it is. It stands for neuro-linguistic, yes, Erica, programming, yes, ding, 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 ding. All right, and let's break that down a little bit, right? NLP. So the neuro stands for neurology, and this is not only the physical components of your neurology, meaning your brain, your nerve tissue, nerve cells, your neurotransmitters and neuropeptides. It's also the emotional and mental components of your neurology. Linguistic obviously stands for language, but it's specifically how you communicate and perhaps with others, and perhaps most importantly with yourself. And then the P stands for programming, which is the sum total of your past experiences, your thoughts, your emotions, your memories. We're going to get into that a little bit more on this live. And thank you if you're here watching this. I am recording this live for my training that I'm doing with Genius Unlocked. So if you're here, you're helping me fulfill this requirement for my training. And I'd also really appreciate your feedback during or at the end to let me know if I've explained these concepts clearly, if this is making sense, and if this is starting to send off some new neurological connections for you, some new ideas or realizations. All right, so NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And neuro-linguistic programming is utilized to help us improve our communication with others and also with ourselves. So why is it that we have such diverse responses to the same event? For example, the pandemic. Some people are really freaked out and like they won't leave their house. They put a mask on all the time. They're washing their hands all the time. Some people are like, whatever, and they're really not worried about it. The weather, right? I live in Florida now, and I'm already acclimated to Florida weather because it's probably about 60 some odd degrees and I've got a flannel shirt on. Some people are like, oh my God, it's 65 degrees, and they're out there in the shorts and t-shirts. How about sports, right? Have you ever watched a basketball game and you and your friend see the same play, but your friend is like, oh, that was a foul, and you're like, no, that wasn't at all. Or even in sports commentary, some commentators will completely see a different play than another commentator. How is this possible? I'm about to tell you. All right, so let's look at our diagram. So we're going to start talking about this part of the diagram here. External events. So that's the weather, the pandemic, a sports match. So an external event happens and it comes into us through our five senses. And those are visual, auditory, right? Visual, what we see, auditory, what we hear, kinesthetic, what we feel, olfactory, what we smell, gustatory, what we taste. So all things are happening outside of us, and it enters into us through our five senses. Right? NLP also teaches us how external events become our internal reality. So we've got those five senses, and in NLP we call that the VACOG, right? VACOG, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. Here's something else that's an amazing fact. When I learned this, it blew my mind. We process, or we rather are hit with about 11 million bits of information per second. There's no way that we can capture all of that, right? So 11 million bits of information per second is coming at you through your five senses, through your visual, your auditory, your kinesthetic, your olfactory, and your gustatory. 11 million bits per second. We can only capture 134. So think about a handful of toothpicks. Well, it would be more like 10 dump trucks of toothpicks. 11 million toothpicks in a humongous dump truck. And the dump truck goes and throws all the toothpicks. You can catch 134 of those. Okay? So every second, that means that 10 million bits of information are being distorted, deleted, and generalized. And these three words, DDG, distortion, deletion, generalization, lead us deeper into this NLP model. All right? So right now, you are taking in 134 bits of information per second. And as this is happening, you are deleting, distorting, and generalizing all the rest, because it's impossible, right? We can't take that much in. It's even been theorized that if we were able to consciously take in that much information, we would go absolutely insane. I have enough trouble with the 134, so I think that makes sense. All right, so we're taking in these 134 bits of information, and all the rest is getting also filtered, deleted, distorted, and generalized. All right, so let's talk a little bit about that. A deletion is when you delete all that extra information. For example, like when you're an athlete performing in a game, in a high-stress situation, is going to delete a lot of that extra information so that they can focus on getting the ball in the hole. Or if you're a pianist or a dancer and you're at a recital, you're going to be deleting a lot of information so that you can focus on your performance. And this is flow state. All right, so a flow state is actually, that's a good thing, right? So deleting isn't necessarily a terrible thing. It's just something that happens. This is what happens. This is how all our minds work. So you've got deletion. There's just too much going on, and you're not going to capture, see, remember, acknowledge a lot of stuff. For example, the other day I was out walking my dogs and I ran into my neighbor, and I noticed that on his house decorations, he has a Santa Claus literally clinging from the roof, right? It's like a stuffed Santa Claus. Now, I've walked by his house dozens of times walking my dog. I'd never seen the Santa Claus until that day. Why? I'm not sure, but I had deleted the Santa Claus all those other times. So we've got deletion. Now, distortions, those are when we mistake something for what it's not. And I'm sure you've probably all had times like this. One of the ones that used to really okay, I'm going to give you a personal story. So a long time ago, I don't know, 10, 15, no, let's see, probably like 15 years ago, I was dating someone. And when we broke up, every person that was about his height and had about his hairstyle, about his build, I was like, oh my God, he's here, right? Everywhere I saw him everywhere. Some of you watching this may know who that is. I don't know. I also saw his car everywhere. I saw a red car, right? Every time I saw a red car, I was like, oh, there he is. All right, I'm not like this anymore. Thank goodness. But at the time, I was really like twisted over this person, and I distorted all these other people to look like him, or I distorted all red cars to be his car. That's also a generalization, and we'll get to that in a bit. But a distortion is when you make something, you mistake something for what it's not. So a distortion might be that somebody says to you, hey, have a great day. And you're like, what the fuck, and you take it a certain way. You distort that, because we'll talk about that some more in a second. So deletions, distortions, generalizations. Generalizations obviously is when one specific example comes to represent a whole class of examples. So an example that I like for this is the door, a door, right? Most doors are rectangular, like that door. But if you watch any of the Lords of the Rings and the Hobbits, they have round doors. Generalizations mean that you still know how to open a door, whether it's rectangular or round or tall or short or narrow. You know it's a door, even though it's not the same door that when you think of door, you might think, okay, a rectangular door, but there's many, many shapes and sizes and styles of doors, and you know how to open them all because that's a generalization. All right. So let's go back to our diagram here. And so an external event comes in to us, and we take it in through our five senses: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. And because there's 11 million bits of information per second coming at us, but we can only hold on to or grab 134 bits of that 11 million, we are going to delete, distort, and generalize. And when we delete, distort, and generalize, we also take those things into chunks, right? And we can process about 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information at any given moment. So what's a chunk? All right, a chunk is like a shopping list, right? And let's say the shopping list has 50 items. Or let's make it a little smaller, 25 items. 5 of those are baking ingredients: brown sugar, flour, baking powder, baking soda, chocolate chips. 5 of those are produce: apples, bananas, lettuce, tomatoes, avocados. 5 of those are dairy: butter, yogurt, milk, eggs, cheese, and so on. Each of those top level categories is a chunk. So you might not be able to remember all 25 items on the grocery list, but if you can remember 5 chunks: produce, dairy, baking, health and beauty, and paper products. If you can remember those 5 chunks, you can probably pretty closely start to remember those other things that are part of the chunk. All right, so this is still the process of filtering, deleting, distorting, and generalizing. Now, how do we delete, distort, and generalize? That's our filters, all right? And you'll hear in NLP a lot of talk about filters. So all this 11 million bits of info is coming in, and we're only able to capture 134, and we're going to delete, distort, generalize via our filters. Our filters are language, the language that we use. The language that we use primes us for those 134 bits. We'll talk about this probably in another video because there's so much I could say about language, but let's just say it's a filter, okay? So the language that you use is a filter. Decisions are a filter. All of us at some point in our lives have made decisions that impacted us going forward. So for example, at one point I decided that I almost cursed. I at one point decided that I'm a really good yoga teacher. I decided that. Probably subconsciously at first, and then I can say that consciously. I'm a really good yoga teacher. I also have made limiting decisions in the past. A limiting decision from my past that I don't think I hold this anymore. I'm working on deprogramming it is I'm no good with money, right? So that would have been a limiting decision from the past that would filter certain information. For example, like, hey, Lola, do you want to be part of this entrepreneurial opportunity? And if that limiting decision were active, I'd be like, no, because I'm not good with money. Now, I'm free of that, and you're free of that too. But that's an example of the decision filter. Then we've got values. That's another filter. Values are incredibly powerful in terms of our behavior and how we see the world. So our values, and I could do a whole live on values, but values are another filter, as are beliefs. Attitudes. What's our attitude towards something, right? For example, your attitude towards cold weather. My attitude towards cold weather, not very good, which is why I moved to Florida and also live part-time in Costa Rica, and why even in Florida I wear flannel shirts, because I don't like cold weather. That's my filter. That's my attitude towards cold weather. So if somebody invites me and says, hey Lola, you want to go on a month-long camping trip in northern Canada? I don't know about that, because already my filter is like, that sounds really cold. But if somebody said, hey Lola, you want to go and spend a month in Bali? I'd be like, let's go tomorrow, because I love the sun, warmth, ocean, and all of that. So attitude. And then memories, right? Our memories are also a filter, because these memories are part of our programming of how we experience the world. All right, so let's back it up again. We're at an external event. We're taking that in through our 5 senses. 11 million bits of information are coming at us. We can only capture 134. We're going to delete, distort, and generalize the rest via our filters, our beliefs, our attitudes, our values, our memories, our language, our decisions. Okay. Now, once all of that is, and all of this is happening in split second time, right? Because this is all happening at a subconscious or unconscious level. This is all happening in the background. All right, so we've done the filtering process, and the filter creates what's called an IR, or internal representation. So this is our shorthand for that filtered information, so that we can like get there really quick. An example is when you're driving a car in mud, and let's say you go forward and back a few times, and there's now your tire grooves in the mud. Now, if you were to keep doing that over and over and over and over again, you would dig a pretty deep rut in the mud, and then if you wanted to turn out of that rut, your wheels probably would not come out of it. That's sort of how our IRs get formed, our internal representations get formed. All the 11 million bits are coming. We're deleting, distorting, generalizing. We have 134 bits of information that are passing, that are creating our IR, our internal representation. And each time that that internal representation goes off in our brain, that's like driving your car in the mud. Now you do that 100 times, 1,000 times, 100 million times, and pretty soon you're not going to be able to drive out of that rut, because your brain is like, nope, every time I see a red baseball cap, I'm going to be so fucking pissed off, right? Or every time I see the American flag, I'm going to react this way. Or every time I see 2 people holding hands, I'm going to react this way, because you've driven your mental car down that road so many times that if you try to turn off of it, wheels just aren't going to go. That's the internal representation. It literally gets grooved into your brain through repetition. And now remember, your IRs are created through your filters. And your filters are things like your memories, your beliefs, your values. All of that is happening in split second, nanosecond time. I'm going to catch up on the comments here. Oh yeah, Maria, yeah, you had that happen to you too. Yes. The X that you see everywhere. That is an example of distortion. All right, so let's keep going here. So we're at the internal representation. Now our internal representation creates our state, and our state creates our physiology. And these things are all, if you can see here, see how those arrows go in both directions, right? So internal representation influences state, state influences physiology, physiology also influences state, and state influences internal representation. So these three things here are constantly feeding into each other. So what's a state? A state is happy, sad, excited. For example, and let's talk about, let me bring these two together because it's a little hard to discuss them. That's a limiting belief. It's not hard to discuss them separately. It's challenging for me at this point in time, but I am getting better and better at this moment to moment. I'm NLPing myself right now. All right, so state and physiology. Physiology is your internal body chemistry, is your posture, is the temperature of your body, all of those subconscious functions that are happening without your conscious control. Now your state, happy, sad, ambitious, dejected. Try this experiment. Go into a body position of sadness and depression. Bring your chest in, hunk your shoulders in, and now say to yourself, I feel awesome. Do you feel awesome right now? I don't think so, right? So that's state and physiology is really powerful stuff. Now, puff up your chest, stand up really tall, put a big smile on your face and be like, I feel fucking awesome. It's very different. So state and physiology are constantly feeding back into one another. Hey Zen Fu, thanks for being here. Hey Kazi, hi Dev. Okay, so IR, internal representation, influences our state, influences our physiology. Let me go back to my example of my ex that I thought I would see in a crowd all the time. So by distortion, I thought I was seeing my ex. My internal representation of my ex popped up in my brain. And then I'd get into an excited state, like, oh my God, that's him. And then my physiology would get anxious because we were broken up and I was anxious about it and anxious to try to see him again or speak to him again or something like that. And then my behavior, so here's the rest of the picture, right? Those three, internal representation, state, and physiology, lead to our behavior. So in the example of my ex, all of this stuff would be cascading through my brain subconsciously, and then I would walk faster over to that person that I thought was him, or I would start to follow that person. I mean, I did some really crazy things, okay? I even would like literally run down red cars until I got close enough to see if it was his license plate. I mean, this is many, many years ago, but hey, you know, I'm human and I've had moments of obsession. And this person, you know, my psychology was very, very different at the time. And I could go into that more deeply, but for another time. Anyway, so internal representation, state, and physiology create behavior. And behavior creates results. So why does this model help us understand why two people can have the exact same, be at the exact same event, be reading, be watching the same news program, be eating the same food, and have such vastly different experiences? It happens at the level of filters, because we each have our own unique values, beliefs, memories, and attitudes, decisions, and language. So NLP communication model helps us understand why this happens, and how it can be really challenging without this information, because this is where arguments happen, right? This is why, how could you possibly think that? Or did we just see the same movie? Or, well, they say that Joe Biden won the election and that's what Google says, whatever. It's like there's so many, all of these disagreements and places where we experience miscommunication or unsatisfactory communication is largely because we're coming at things from our own unique filtered place, and we're not aware of that. Most people don't bring that to the fore. It's much easier and quicker, and we're kind of conditioned to be like, oh no, there's something wrong with you. There must be something wrong with you, the way that you think, the way that you see things, the way that you interpret things, right? That's very common when we do that. We blame or shame someone else because they don't see things the way that we do, or they don't understand things the way that we do, when they're just going through their filters like we are. Now, there's processes of neurolinguistic programming that can help us. Now that we know this, it's like, okay, now you know this. Now what do you do with it? Well, I'm learning that next. So I'll tell you about that next. But I already know some of the things that can be done. For example, decisions. You can release limiting decisions. So I just told you earlier that one of my old limiting decisions was that I'm not good with money. And so if somebody were to say, hey, Lola, here's this great opportunity. I'd love for you to get involved. Why don't you come in as a partner, or let's co-create this thing together? And if there was any money investment involved in the past, I might have been like, no, I don't think so, because I'm not good with money. Well, I'm free from that. And if you're watching this, you're free from that too. That limiting decision is no longer a part of my psychology, right? Through coaching and working on myself, and also by observing my behavior and seeing that actually my behavior says that I'm not that bad with money, that or I'm pretty good with money, that I was able to revise that decision. Another common limiting decision might be like, I can't lose weight because whatever. Corey, thank you. Thanks so much. Interesting. The personal touch. Thank you so much. I think it really helps. It helps me communicate and share this information, because without that, this is my lived experience of NLP, right? It's like, now that I know this information, I can look back on my life and be like, oh, that's why I responded that way. That's why I reacted that way. That's why me and this person had a disagreement, whatever. So thanks so much for pointing that out. All right, so limiting decisions, right? As soon as you clear a limiting decision from your filter, then what happens? Your IR changes. Your IR changes. And when your IR changes, now you have opportunities for new behavior, new realizations, new awareness that you didn't have before. And when your IR changes, your state changes and your physiology changes. So let's go back to the money, the money belief, right? In the past, I would have said, I'm not good with money. And so now that I have a new decision, when there's an opportunity for investment, for example, I invest in myself by training, right? Like I'm in this neurolinguistic training course. That's an investment of my time, my money, my energy. In the past, I might have not signed up for this course because I would have been daunted by the price. And I would have said, maybe I'm too busy, I have too many other things going on, I should really focus on these other things over here instead of take my time and learn new material to bring into my coaching work, to bring into my yoga and healing work. I don't think that way anymore, right? I cleared that limiting decision. So now my IR, my internal representation, expanded. So when I was invited to sign up for this NLP training course, I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And then I saw the price and I was like, all right, it's a stretch, but I can do that because I'm good with money now, right? And then my state, instead of being depressed that I'm not good with money and that I can't sign up and take cool courses and expand my repertoire, instead I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to put down this money. I'm going to study this thing. I'm going to get more information. I'm going to be able to serve my clients better. I'm going to become a better communicator. I'm going to become a better teacher. And my physiology is one of happiness and anticipation and readiness. And my behavior is that I sign up for the class, I learn the material, I start teaching the material, I start using the material, I'm able to make bigger impacts for my clients, I'm able to bring on new services that I can offer my clients, and so on. So I think I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you for the comments on my makeup. And here's an IR right here around this, because one of these eyes is kind of messed up. I think it's this one, my right eye. And I'm not really that good with eyeliner. So I was putting it on today and I was like, I don't know about this. But then let's see, how did that work? Let me try to back this up. So my limiting decision is that I'm not good with makeup. But I recognized that thought, and I didn't have much time before this live was supposed to go on. You know, I had only a few minutes. So I took a Q-tip and I fixed it. Instead of being like, I'm going to be late, I'm going to have to take all this off and start over again, right? Which I might have done in the past. Like messing up eyeliner in the past might have been a reason why I didn't do the live. And it seems ridiculous, but I'm sure that there's some of you out there watching this that can relate to that. Like you're all ready and you're all set to do a thing, and then something happens and you bail on it. That's this part of the schema in action. This part, internal representation, state, physiology leading to behavior. The behavior being that you bail on yourself. So when you change your IRs, really when you change your decisions, it's really when you change your decisions, your thoughts, your language, that's when you change your IRs. When you change your IRs, your options expand, the map enriches, and there's more opportunity, more available to you, things that you haven't seen before. Cool. Oh my gosh, really? Cha-Cha's like wondering how you did such amazing makeup. See, that's Cha-Cha's filter. Cha-Cha is looking at me. She's filtering me through her eyes, through her ears, and her filter said that my makeup is great. Awesome. Thank you. See? So I was like, I suck at eyeliner, and there's somebody else watching this who's like, that looks amazing. That's all IR. Maria, I almost bailed on my drawing today because I was trying to finish it by a deadline. Yeah. So deadline, that's again an IR, right? So at some point I'm gonna do a mind read here, Maria, but I'm gonna say that one of your filters is perhaps maybe memory or values, right? So like, let's say you have a value to finish something by a certain time, a deadline, right? That's a value. It could also be language, the type of language that you're using around that word, deadline, the attitude that you have towards deadlines, the memories that you have around deadlines, and all of that is influencing your internal representation leading to your state, to your physiology, to your behavior, and you almost bailed on yourself. That's a great realization. So I hope that this was helpful, interesting, that I'd love to hear some comments for any of those of you still listening here. Did this make sense to you? Do you feel that knowing this, having been exposed to this NLP communication model, has awakened something, or perhaps just made things a little bit clearer, or you're just feeling like something's going on up there, and I feel like my mind state is expanding, but I'm not yet sure how yet? Let me know. What do you think? Okay, yes, Maria says yes, fear and anxiety with deadlines. So perfect, right? It's like that is 100% filter. Now, if Maria and I were to do a limiting decision around deadlines, the next time that she's experiencing a deadline, she might have a very different IR, internal representation, around deadlines, because we've worked on her, all right? We've worked on her language, on her decisions, on her values and beliefs, on her attitudes. We've explored some of those memories, and when we come out of it, she's going to have a whole new way of filtering the word deadline, or filtering the experience of deadline. And instead of it being like locking up and being like, oh, I can't do the thing because deadline, she's like, oh, awesome, I have this deadline. I love deadlines. Deadlines motivate me to get even more inspired, even more in gear. Deadlines motivate me to clear my calendar and to make space so I can totally focus. Who knows? But the point is that every time that we clear something that's in our filter, our IR changes, our what's available to us expands. So we get new opportunity, new behavioral opportunities, new cognitive opportunities, new relational opportunities. It's really, really awesome. Yes, Kazi, there will be a part 2 eventually. And there's just so much to learn in NLP. As I mentioned, this is really about the model and not about now what to do, right? So now anybody who watched this maybe has this sense of like, okay, now I can have a little bit more compassion or understanding when me and my friend or partner or family member have completely divergent views on the exact same occurrence. Maybe this NLP model will help me have more compassion or understanding toward them, or maybe I'll get really curious about what's in their filter. So the application of NLP would be the part 2, and as I get more familiar with and more comfortable with this material, I will do a part 2. But I am still learning. I'm just at the beginning of my journey with this stuff. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Do you have any questions? Any comments? I would love to hear from you. And I'm actually going to share this video in the Facebook group of the training program that I'm in. I also have to teach 2 more neurolinguistic programming concepts, and I've spoken to a couple of you individually about doing that. And as I get more practice, I would love to do some limiting decision releases with you guys. This all fits in beautifully with coaching, right? Neurolinguistic programming and coaching go together like a hand in a glove. So look out for part 2. Let me know how I can serve you with this NLP technology. I'm really excited about learning this. I've wanted to learn this for years, so I'm really happy to finally be doing it. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. And as you go about your day today, right, just maybe you'll remember this live, and when you have a reaction or a response to something, maybe you'll say to yourself, those are my filters at work, and now look at this IR that I'm having. I'm all wound up about this thing, and now my state is that I'm anxious, and my physiology is that I'm short of breath and shaky, and my behavior is that I want to get as far away as possible from that thing. Maybe you'll be able to track an external event coming through your 5 senses, passing through your filters, and creating that IR, and you'll be able to follow how that IR comes all the way through out into your behavior. All right, so NLP can help us in so many ways, and thank you so much for being here and taking this in with me and being here with me. This is my first time teaching this, so I appreciate all your comments and feedback, and thank you so much.